Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to A Gathering Place, brought to you by the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. And this is Second Wednesday Environmental and Energy Day. And of course, that is brought to you by the Energy Foundation, by a generous grant brought to you by the Energy Foundation. And we're really excited about that. So every second Wednesday, we talk about environmental issues, energy issues, green renewable energy. And we have environmental management consultant from the Gullah Geechee community with us today, who's going to talk about the work that she does in the community and the mission of her company. Because, there are career opportunities in environmental justice. There are career opportunities in the environmental movement that we need to know about, but also the work that is being done by individuals within the Gullah Geechee community up and down the Gullah Geechee corridor. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. And you know what's going to happen? We're going to come right on back after this opening.
Hello, I'm Marilyn Hemingway, and welcome to A Gathering Place. I said, I'm stepping back because we have young voices who want to be heard, and they're moving on something.
Branding is really important to you and your business.
Even a basic type of technology, you learn it all.
And people are
Good question.
Well, we're back at the second Wednesday Environmental and Energy Themed Day, brought to you by the Energy Foundation. And we're happy to have everyone here. Our special guest today, let's go ahead and bring her in and let's get started with our conversation. Miss Chriscillia Cox, how are you of SUMA Consulting? How are you doing?
Well, Marilyn, thank you for having me. Yes.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. This is, I just love this show because the theme is bringing change makers impacting the community, and I just try to think out of the box. So when I meet folks such as yourself, you're out here doing work in the environmental field, the environmental movement, and let's just be quite honest, the Black community, Gullah Geechee community, we need to really get more knowledge about the environmental movement, the environmental field, what's going on in it. Because one, healthy environment means healthy people, healthy planet. Two, there are career opportunities. There are opportunities for our communities, but it takes knowledge to recognize the opportunity. So I love to bring folks on like you who are out here doing the work. So enough of my talking. Let's go ahead and find out what's going on. Introduce yourself and then introduce SUMA Consulting. How did you get into this field?
So my name is Chriscillia Cox. I'm the founder and CEO of SUMA Consulting, LLC. I originally got into the field because of the military, via the military. I was a preventive medicine officer. I'm originally from Johns Island, South Carolina, the JI, outside of Charleston, outskirts. And I actually went into the military on a ROTC scholarship. Long story short, got into the military, found my niche. I was a chemist by trade, went to a HBCU, Allen University, Columbia, and decided to come into the field because of what was going around and what was going on with our climate change. And with that being said, the climate change that we had is so abruptly, especially on the islands and the outskirts and on the coast of Georgia in our community, that sea rise began to really pique my interest in what's going on. One of the things that SUMA Consulting does is we try to teach businesses and residential how to shrink their carbon footprint. Believe it or not, some of the changes that we are seeing to include sea rise and the weather effects and stuff is because the way how we use our carbon footprint. There's two ways of that. You have the primary and the secondary. The primary is the stuff that you don't really have control over. That is the way how we eat, the way how we do certain things to do the basic living of what we do everyday lives. But then there's some things that we can change, like the gas that we use, we can walk. Or if instead of buying processed food, you could actually plant your own. So everything actually is like the big circle of life. It is a cause and effect to anything. Once you start overusing, overextending, there is going to be some repercussions and certain things are going to fall. And unfortunately, some of these big companies that we do have, they are actually building inside our communities. They're building inside of places where it is underserved, because it's like, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal. It's a field, it's near a bunch of houses, but it's low income, it's not really anything doing there. We need to make some life happen. We need to have some tourism type things going on, when that could be used for the community and the community itself. So 9 out of 10, like, again, people of color and those who are underserved are the ones that get most affected. And if you, again, as Marilyn said, if you don't know and be knowledgeable of that, then you'll just let anything just pass by and just say, oh, okay, well, I guess it's good because it's coming from this place and that place, or even authoritative figures in the government, unfortunately. So with SUMA Consulting, we teach you how to actually shrink your carbon footprint right where you are. What that simply means is that how we customize a plan for you and where you're at, whether it's in your business, your home, because every little bit counts. If everyone do a little of something, the greatest sum is just much better than what you can even think or imagine. So that's the short end of what SUMA does. We're based in Georgia, but we are virtual. All of our services are virtual. And actually we were virtual before the virtual became a thing. So we've been doing it for a while. And again, the cover area I cover is actually Georgia, the coastal Georgia, South Carolina, and a little bit of North Carolina and Florida. So my services, I'm willing to travel. Again, I'm from the area. I'm not that far away from Maryland or anyone. Just definitely the area is home to me. And, I imagine, not imagine, but I always dream now of when I was a kid around my daughter's age, which she's 6, where I can just go outside and I can just breathe the air without smelling carbon, like smoke or anything like that. It was just refreshing. That was one of the main things in the morning, getting at the bus stop, was me just to breathe air. And just to have now that we do not have the luxury, depending on what the air pollutants are that day, hey, you may inhale some other stuff that you don't want because of what we're doing. So when it comes down to energy and energy audits, there's a lot of inexpensive ways. A lot of people hear sustainability and environmental sustainability and think, oh my God, I have to, spend a lot of money to get to this. In actuality, it's not that much. It's just a little bit of lifestyle changes that you have to make, and you'll be fine. So that's one of the things, the educational part to bring it to awareness is, bottom line, is everybody's responsibility to protect the earth and to make sure there's something for our legacy to actually hold on to and look forward to when they get older. Not, hey, am I going to be able to breathe when I get to be 20? That should not be a fear of mine right now. But I will tell you, it's not a fear, but it's a concern that I have because of what we're doing. So I'm going to pause right there, Marilyn, for you.
You said a lot, and I had a lot of questions in my head. So I'm just going to start asking some questions, and we'll have this conversation. There's been so much miseducation, because when you were saying, a remark you said about it being expensive to change our lifestyle, our habits that impact the community, and it's really not about being expensive and putting cost out, because you can look around your house and do certain things differently. I remember, we've been recycling for so long in my family home. I can't remember when we weren't. So I'm saying when we were children, we were recycling and having the separate containers. So there are things that we can do that don't cost us anything. It just takes intentionality and getting knowledge so you can see what you can do to change that impacts the environment. With that said, those are individual things, but I also have been reading and know that industrial pollution is a huge factor also. What can we do as individuals, or what do you do to help folks to address the industrial polluters? Do you do anything with that? And can you talk about that a little bit?
I'm actually an advocate for climate reality, and also I sit on 2 boards in my county right now dealing with local municipalities and how we looked at businesses that are coming in. Most of the work I do is policy development and training and educational training at the industrial commercial level. Because one of the things, it's one thing to be LEED certified and you got green building status. It's great to do that. But how you maintain and keep that building to stay in that status to keep it is something that is a culture change, and it has to be a policy development to make employees aware. There was a survey that I did did I do this survey or somebody else? No, I did a training, but somebody else had a survey that was put out in certain sections of Savannah and Atlanta. And what they found was that the generation Z, Y, and Z, they're more conscientious about the environment and what is going to be left when they get to be technically our ages. So they're more concerned to work and willing to work for companies that actually have a more green mindset or a more earth saving protection type mode than to work with somebody who isn't, because that is something that is coming up more and more regularly. And if you also notice, places like GM and all these big, large cars, the next 3 to 5 years, they're making the electric car and the hybrids a little bit more accessible to kind of their pledges right now in order to make a difference in the energy and the cost savings and gas and and the ozone. They're willing to do that because right now I think it's like an extra $5,000 to $8,000 to get something hybrid onto the cost that you already have for the for your vehicle. They have them all, but yeah, that's one of the biggest things that they have. But I sit on a couple of boards, or I'm actually a regular guest at places like the Harambe House in Savannah. There's a Savannah Climate Reality Group that I'm a part of, and we do go after legislative and different petitions towards the state and federal levels. So that's one way I do it. And then I go right back, and then I go to the local levels and municipalities and actually produce training. I have a couple proposals right now to where we're just going to have a mass education for small businesses and also for the residents that are in that matter, the residents that matter at this time, it will be most affected. So that's pretty much what my company is doing. Individually, I actually do petitions. I actually have not learned the art of protesting and safe protesting. However, being around a couple of key events where I'm at right now, that's a next training that I'll be taking up personally just to see what I can do. But definitely educating and policy development are the 2 things that the company, along with myself on an individual basis, have decided to do to at least get the voice and the message out.
Very good. And so my next question is, how much do you think being from Johns Island and being Ludowici, we are descendants, I'm from Georgetown, we're descendants of enslaved Africans who were brought here because of their knowledge of how to control the water and manage the land to grow the rice, sea island cotton, and so on. So we're very much connected to the land and the water. How much do you think that has influenced your work and your decision to go into the environmental work?
Major. When I was growing up, just like you said, coming from descendants, coming from a rural area, there was no hospitals. There was no, I had barely adequate health insurance. So the main thing my mom would do is that cholesterol and those milk of magnesia and everything else, and life everlasting and all that good stuff. that we take. And I'm gonna be honest, I never really remember being sick, hardly when I was growing up, other than your occasional chicken pox. Everybody gets it. Once one kid get it, all get it. But I didn't have mumps or rubella or nothing like that growing up. And I always wondered, why in the world, everybody else got snotty nose in the wintertime. My mom is stuffing that casserole down us. I'm like, man, this is nasty. You know what I mean? But those same things from off what she cultivated, and my grandmother had a small field that was outside where we picked our stuff. And she would always say, you all eat too much processed food. It's bad. It's bad stuff. You need to go out there and pick them beans. So, I remember growing up, and that is past. So I know that has everything to do with why I am the way I am. I go home often just to get away and to go down to the beach and actually just sit there and listen to the waves. Or I can fall asleep out there. I remember, laying out and putting on, not deep, but some Skin So Soft and be all right with the mosquitoes. So, I mean, I know that what I do is heavily influenced from the culture, heavily.
Definitely. When you grow up, I remember once we came back from overseas, because I'm a military brat, and going to McKenzie Beach and going crabbing, really getting your own food out of the yard. I did not know for the longest that figs were considered gourmet food, because we would go into our grandmother's backyard and go get figs and sprinkle a little sugar on them. You put them in the refrigerator overnight. And I mentioned figs because we would fight the birds for the figs. So now that's really organic. Two, figs are high fiber. So you eat figs, let's just keeping it real. You're regular, but it was so sweet and it tastes so good. And this is medicine. What did they tell you? High fiber diet is good for you because it's cleansing you out. And we were literally getting that natural medicine, the fig, from our grandmama's yard. She had 2 fig trees, would stay full with figs. We never had a problem of, lack of, low fiber, because it was there, and persimmons were just, a friend of mine, he had so many persimmons in his yard. The birds, he just let the birds just get some of it because they can't eat enough. That's part of in the environment. It's, we talk about people saying, grow your own food, where we had it to a certain extent. Conversations with my mother talking about the cow, in the yard. They got the milk straight from the cow. It makes a difference when you understand where your food comes from and when you grow your food. It is nothing like tasting a hot tomato right off the plant
with a little bit
in the garden and biting into it.
And a little bit of salt, though. I had to have a little salt packed.
Yeah, I can sit in there as long as it's warm. I get you with the salt. Just that bite is nothing. It tastes different. You hear people who now go back to, may have the small garden in their yard. And one of the statements I hear all the time is, man, it just tastes different. Yeah, because you're tasting what is in the ground. It literally is just pulling the nutrients out of the ground. That's what you taste in that flavor.
Yeah.
And I remember members of the community, because my mother was an organist and pianist, so she traveled all across Georgetown County and other areas for church, weddings, etc. And she would have her main churches she would play at, and I was the only girl, the only daughter, so I would go with her most of the time. And after church, the fresh eggs, people would, just give the organist or the minister fresh eggs, fresh whatever they made and grew. That's what people would just give each other, barter with each other, or just give. We had extra, we gave. And you don't think about that growing up, how that impacted our diet and the difference from that naturally grown organic food to what we get in the grocery store.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And I was going to say, that's why I was going to talk a little bit more about we shared back then to keep that culture, to keep that rhythm going, to make sure that we took care of our own. You didn't have to, Sister Lula May had 3 eggs. My mama would say, you going over down the road now, you going to get, I done called Sister Lula May. She said she got 3 eggs for you. You bring them eggs back here. And she would give me a little bag, and I would go down the road. And she said, come directly back.
That's right.
Stop, don't play with your friends, no basketball, come back. So I remember being the runner.
I remember one of my memories is going to church at Gordon Chapel AME in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, which is in Georgetown County. And it's next to, we have to make a left turn next to Brook Green Gardens. You pass Brook Green Gardens, which was created from like 5 or 6 former plantations. And you make that left and you go down to the old location of Gordon Chapel. But on the way back sometimes, and they might arrest me now, I guess the statute of limitations is out. My mom would tell me, get out on the way home. And you see some fallen wood over there, because our fireplace was a wood fireplace. It burned wood at the time. It's burning propane now. But she said, you go out there and get some wood. I see some wood. And I would be in the woods getting wood in my Sunday clothes and my pantyhose getting all ripped up and everything. So I say all that to say we were really in touch. It was nothing for us to go in the woods and go get what we needed, whether it was to heat the fireplace or get the food, et cetera, et cetera. And I look back on those times, I think that's our culture. As you said, we shared with each other. We would just go into the woods and get what we needed. Not everything, but a lot we did. And some way we got away from that in many ways, but maybe because it became a more formal type career type thing, rather than us opening our eyes and really seeing this is who we are. Our culture is to be environmentalists. And we may not have used the terminology, but that's what we were. Because you got to take care of what will take care of you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have your website up and I've had it out for a while. Mm-hmm. I must say it's a beautiful website and I love green. Gullah-Geechee Chamber, green's our color also. So this is your website and I'm at the bottom of the screen, y'all. I'm running phone numbers because if you're interested in a consultation, and Chriscilla did say you cover Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and I'm sure you're growing from there also. But if you want a consultation
in
Florida, yes. So if I want a consultation, what happens with the consultation?
So it's called a discovery call or consultation. And what I do is I see what your goals are or what you are trying to target as your goal. And then we make a customizable questionnaire towards that. I'll ask a couple of questions. And then you never know, you might find something else that you're interested to actually focus on. So that's why we have a discovery session first to discover what it is that you are actually looking at or what you may be interested in. And then I give the full out questionnaire. From the questionnaire, I can either I can do a virtual whole schematic of your building, your house, your residence. And then I can come back with recommendations. I can come back with things that you can do and cut and things that you can do within right now, immediately, couple of months from now, year, also with the retainer if you need me to. But I can do that right from just like how we're conversating right now. I can do that. But it's customizable to you.
So give me an example of what you say would recommend. Would you recommend, say, the use of LED lighting?
Yes. Yes.
Give us a couple examples.
Like blinds, you can also do weather blinding. That's also great because it keeps the heat in the winter and then it gets you cool during the summer. So I have those. They're a little bit expensive, but when you over time and your electric bill will show you how that actually works. Weathering is another example on how to properly weather, like your pipes. And, people don't think that you need to weather because, Georgia, South Carolina, you don't need that. We always have the same. No, it's not true. Not true at all. You still have to weather at some point to include your yard to make sure that you're able to grow. And that's the other thing too. Making sure that you have the proper soil, and you're planting the proper plants, summer, spring, fall, winter, they all have different seasons to plant and stuff. So we can talk about things like that. Then my last example I will give, if like in a commercial setting, is how do you start I'm not going to say recycling program because anybody can do that. How you do an energy conservation program within your business, and we will go and talk about the different things that you are currently doing, maybe a list of things that you've tried and done that wasn't so successful, employee knowledge, because that has a lot to do with it, because you can create great programs at a workplace, but if the buy-in is not there from your employees and everyone that's around you, it's really not a working program. And then I also have certifications that you can get to where on the business level, to where we can actually track your goals, annually, yearly, and it's reported up to a reputable system to where you're noted for being one of the business that is targeting on better green business practices. So I have all of that in my firm.
So if I'm a business, and I am a business, and right now because of COVID, I'm working out of home, so I have a home office. And one of the things I do is I keep as many lights off as possible. I keep the lights, and right now I have one light on, and that's the O-ring for the show.
Yep, I actually have one light on too.
Yeah, it's natural lighting. The rest is natural lighting. I have the window blinds open. But if one other thing that I do, if I am not using a lamp in a room, I actually unplug it.
Yes.
I don't. I have a lot of lamps throughout my house because there's some rooms. This is the family home, so it was built for a family of 6, and I'm the only one in here now. So there's some rooms I don't go in that often. So I simply have unplugged the lamps from the actual socket. What other things, just to give us a couple examples of, for in the office or home office, what can we do to help, one, lower our energy bills, but also help the environment?
So one would be shut down your computer at night.
Mm-hmm.
Shut it all the way completely down. Even though it's on save, power mode, screensaver, it's still using some type of energy. So that's one thing that you can do. Another thing is plants. You can use plants to help with the oxygen, so you don't have fresh air. So all you can use is maybe your window with some just hike it up a little bit and you get fresh air. So different types of plants do that and keep the air purified for you, so you don't have to run a purifier in your house. COVID, plants naturally do that. They take that energy that you're using and actually make it in carbon dioxide. They use it to grow. There are things that you can do with that. And probably another one I would say, the difference in, again, winterizing. You know how back in the day, you used to cork your windows and stuff during the winter time. You don't have to necessarily use that stuff, because there's a way that you could do with like I said, with the blinds that you have, that you don't even have to use corking. But yeah, they used to cork everything. Yeah, cork over there.
But some of us, let's be honest, some of our folks, like I'm fortunate that probably 25, 30 years ago, my parents put an investment in the windows. They upgraded the windows. And let me tell you, major difference in the utility bill.
Yes, major.
Windows are real.
Yes,
they are real. I got people who are like neighbors. Why is my bill $300 something and yours is like $100 something? I'm not gonna call names, because when my parents were still alive, I remember hearing that conversation. That's literally, you could see the difference almost immediately, and just imagine long term. But there's some of us who can't afford to upgrade.
So, and that
as a consultant, can you help with that?
I can. It's again more on probably a different way. Like I'm using corking to be funny, but some people still do that.
Mm-hmm.
A different way would probably be I got to look at all the interest ways, because it's different for every house and every year, and every codes are different too. Because like you said, if you didn't invest in that, sometimes there's nothing you can do unless you invest. Like you said, take the time, get the windows done, get the correct doors put onto your house, but stuff that is just, affordable, I will more than have to look at what you have to work with what you can afford to do. Because you can do door stoppers, you can do the little things underneath the door, you can do some things, but it still automatically matters to how much you want to, how much you want to save, what types of things and resources you have. Because if God forbid something happened, not everything is a permanent fix. permanent fixes are what you're talking about, the conversation about changing out windows. So we can go ahead and say, you're going to have to spend something. And then you just have to really look at the different grades. Maybe you can't afford the most expensive, they're pretty and they're pretty expensive as well, but maybe a mid-grade, or a lower cost window, just to start a little bit of stuff, So just to get you started, and then plan your goals and monetary wise to upgrade as you go along. But you have to have a starting point at somewhere, so that I can help definitely with that.
But I'm just excited listening to you and hearing you, and plus I'm excited because you're a community member. You're Ludowici doing this type of work, and we need more folks doing the work that you're doing because you know the community and it's real impact. So how, if I'm interested, I'm 18 years old, just finished high school, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do in life, and how would I hear about maybe even a major in this field? How would I get in this field?
Well, there's a couple of options. You can go and just become an environmental science major, which is really pretty much a generalist like myself, that you just know a little bit about everything, but it's not really your specialty. Now, I do have specialties, my training, policy development, waste management. That is like when you talk about recycling lesson, that is my forte. I have certifications in that. That's what I do. But just on a generalist side, a Bachelor of Science degree now in the field can help. Another level is to actually go up a step further and go to public health and get a master's in that. That you only need those two really to survive in this field. If you want to become, a DR or anything else, is nice, but to do what I do and being more, I'm more of a community person and trying to educate people and have, not the corporate, oh, this is what we're going to do today. I don't have to be, but I can be. And so I have that mixture, but it's really all in what you want to do. I mean, even down to just being an environmental tech, that's even a 2-year to where you actually going out there and putting your hands on stuff. Like right now, I don't do a whole lot of field work because it's just me and a bunch of contractors. But I have that luxury that if I need to, I can. So I try to do that more hands-on when I come to my commercial and my residential sometimes when I have the time, but more in the commercial on the higher levels of municipalities, I do that because, I'm not going to say, oh, well, I'm send somebody back to get an air sample. I can do one on the spot. That's never, I'll get a water sample. I can do that right then and there. I got stuff in my car. So, but for an 18-year-old that wanted, it's interesting you said that because I'm actually hiring a couple of interns right now to actually help me with that. So just, they needed the hours and to get credit, and I can use some extra help. So it works out quite well. So that will be a start. Volunteer, look at some internships. Call me. I'll talk to you. I've helped several young people decide which direction, because the field is so wide open. You don't have to be, do all. You can just specialize in one part. And that's one thing I chose to stay more general, because small businesses and more the individual families right now, especially in our community, don't have a generalist. They have to pay hundreds of dollars to get somebody to even if it's worth it. They'll be like, well, what do you have? Oh, that's not worth my time. Why don't you call such and such,
Can I have 2 cookies?
She can say hi if you want to.
I'm gonna say hi.
The wonders of online shows. There she is. Hey.
Say hello.
Hello.
Hi. What's your name?
Trinity.
What?
Trinity.
Trinity?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Trinity. Look, this is the wonders of online talk shows.
Yes, listen. She
Working
comes
from
in,
home.
that is my quality control officer. Trust me.
No, I'm a little slide dipper.
It's whatever.
Yeah. Believe me, when I have folks come on, it's live TV, I guess.
Yes.
She's
yes.
cute. So
Thank you.
I forgot what I was going to ask you now. So you mentioned, I think, DR initials. Did I hear DR? What's that? Explain DR.
DR is doctor of PhD in it, but for public health, they don't get. It's not written out the same way.
Okay.
It's
Is it like doctor of research or something?
It's the doctor. It's not in philosophy though, and that's where most PhDs come from. So,
okay, gotcha.
So it's written different. It's DR with a big D, small R, and then PH, capital P, capital H. So it's not just like
Gotcha.
So,
All right, very good. I wanted to make sure people got that. And before we move on, I want to remind everyone that you are watching A Gathering Place, brought to you by the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. And today's show, our environmental and energy show, is sponsored by the Energy Foundation. And we are always excited to have the Energy Foundation support our programming. And we're with Ms. Chriscilla Cox with SUMA Consulting, talking about environmental management and consulting and the work that she does and what folks can do to get into the environmental field. Because part of our advocacy here at the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce is the environment, environmental justice, and education about green renewable energy, because regarding careers and business opportunities in green renewable energy, because that's the future. And I don't want my folks to be left out of that. I don't want us 10 years from now go, why did I know about electric vehicles? When the car, I've worked with the South Carolina Energy Office. The conversation is how are we going to roll this out? How are we going to have charging stations in rural communities?
Absolutely.
Who's going to own those charging stations?
Absolutely.
Economic opportunity, folks, buy, as you were saying, access for the masses to get to electric vehicles. Volvo in South Carolina, in Charleston area, Berkeley, Dorchester, the Tri-County area, is their factory there is electric vehicles. They're building electric vans. They're vans that they're building. And I want one of those for the chamber. So as we go up and down the coast, educating about all of our programs and everything.
Right.
This is the future, folks. In our community, we need to get aware of this stuff or we're going to be left behind. And there's folks like you, Chriscilla, you're out here doing the work to educate people. And you mentioned electric vehicles at the beginning. Tell us, I've done some research work with the Energy Office in South Carolina but you tell us, give us some information about electric vehicles.
The same thing with the vehicles. I don't know too much other than what I shared, but I do know when it comes to the residential and businesses with the solar panels, I have a little bit more information on that. They have the same exact problem that the electric vehicles have. It's the charging. When you purchase the solar panels for your home, panels are not the issue, It's really the battery.
Yeah.
After your sun goes down and you need to go, these batteries are running like $15,000.
Yeah.
Now, that is a concern. How do we make those resources more accessible to those who can't even afford or try and barely affording the panels that they have? That is something that they're trying to do on the legislative portion in Georgia. Right now, there's only 3 cities that are actually committing to 100% renewable energy by 2030. That's Atlanta, Athens, and Savannah. Those are the only ones that signed up for the entire state. Okay. And I don't live in none of those cities. I live on the outskirts of those cities. And honestly, it's more rural than the ones that we just named, way rural, especially when it comes in terms to Atlanta. And, like these folks are older. I'm in a town where who the oldest person, how old they are and where they live. That type of thing. So it's one of those things to where, how do we get access to them? So some towns that are just going with the buses, like making them more public transportation, more on the renewable energy side to have to start, but can't afford to have a full out plan right now because of the demographics. So how do we do this? So how do we go ahead and make sure that we are in on the conversation? So conversations like this and putting on YouTube is something for you, is something to be not only admired, but more appreciative so you would know. So that's when you go to your city council meetings. That's when you go to your alderman meetings. That's when you go, because these conversations are being brought up because of the actual government have actually put it out there. And you have big corporations like here is Georgia Power. So they're now starting to, buy back your power. 15%, they got a grid, 15%, but they'll buy back your power in order to make the renewable energy. But again, it still stands to the resources to keep it going. So that is what, if that somebody can come up with a renewable battery, that'll be awesome.
That's a game changer right there. You're right about the batteries. And the batteries now, even the materials that are used to make batteries impact the environment. So when she says renewable batteries, you got to think you're not just a battery at my house that's going to keep my house rolling. What's the environmental impact of pulling those materials out?
Yeah, exactly.
And creating those batteries.
And creating those. So there's only one company in the entire state of Georgia that can do this, right? So he could be like a monopoly right now, but I don't know what's going on with that. But that's the only place so far that the local municipalities and people are talking about, this one company in Georgia. So that's only one company. We got 50 states, South Carolina, somebody can come up with this. That is, like you said, it's a game changer. Somebody can be, the help, the art of hope when it comes to helping us get to a resourceable or a level of comfort in people trying, if we had more resources and not being so expensive. So that's one way. The other conversations that's on the solar panel is who is actually have a reputable company, because we got a lot of new companies coming into the field, but there's no one to really vouch for what they do, because it's a chance. So that's another thing too, chances and taking a chance on new products or services. You have to build your reputation, build your image, branding, all those things comes into play. Right now, in the city of Savannah, they had three bids. They went with one bid, but he surely can't take care from Savannah all the way down to Brunswick, going into Florida. Can't do it. He's a small company and he doesn't have the resources yet. And if he does, he will have to build in the middle of production, if that makes sense. He will have to build quickly, and then we don't know what type of quality we're going to get. So he picks the small area and try to focus on there. But again, still the batteries are the issue for those who are in the underserved communities, because the islands and those who have money, hey, they can afford it, but they're like, hey, if I can get it cheaper, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind at all. That's $15,000. That's so.
And it's one thing also, I'm glad you brought that, because even like say tax credits, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get a tax credit, you have to spend something up front. Exactly. Then you go, when you file your taxes, you get your tax credit. There are not a lot of low income folks who can make the investment in their homes to upgrade solar panels, whatever the tax credit is, and then wait to file their taxes and get a tax credit. So this is why policy is so important that you mentioned, that we need to go to our elected officials and say, we got to come up with a better way so that we could subsidize lower income households, because the more I use energy, and depending on how the energy is produced, I'm impacting the environment. So you might be sitting over there in your $2 million home and you have all the upgrades and environmental certifications. But if there are a whole bunch of other houses over here that don't have those upgrades, we're still putting stuff out into the environment that's impacting all of us.
Right. And that's why it's a collective responsibility. It's not just, when I go to talk to, I think, the municipalities and different parties, is not on a one set party. It's a nonpartisan issue. It's everybody. And that's the main thing that we have to get in our heads. Like, it affects, I don't care who you voted for, when you voted for them, you with this said party, whatever. This issue is everybody's responsibility. And I make sure when I go into a room, I'm not here representing anything. I am representing those who are suffering because of this, regardless. These communities need help. But then at the same token, the same breath, we have to be, like you said, we have to be present. We have to be in the know in order to know what issues are affecting us. And it is It's sad, but it's true when when you don't participate. Oh, I don't want to go to those council meetings and stuff, but you should because your taxes pay for it. And then they make these decisions on your behalf where you have
That's
no
right.
say.
That's right. That's right. And then by the time you hear about it, the decision has already been made, and you're just getting the consequence of that decision rather than being at the table to influence the decision. And when it comes to the environment, that's so important. When it comes to our culture, that is inherently tied to the environment, it's so important that we're at the table.
Yep, very important.
So our voices are heard because we're talking about, unplugging lamps and getting these windows out. But this is a cultural thing when in between the transitions between winter and spring and summer and fall, you open your windows and you get that fresh air in, that's a cultural thing, folks.
Yes.
How many of us slept on our screened-in porch in the evenings? Yeah, to take advantage of the cooler or warmer weather during the nicer, seasons and everything. And it saved on electricity. But for some of us, we did it thinking it was an adventure. When our parents and grandparents are like, man, if we sleep outside on this beautiful night, we don't have to turn on the AC.
Nope.
We don't have the AC. It's just get this air circulating in the house. Open your window. My mother firmly believed that. To open those windows to get the fresh air circulating in your house actually lowers your chance of getting a cold because you're not shut in. Your house, what's the term? Your house is tight.
Yep, that's it.
You have your windows and stuff, and you don't open and get that fresh air. You don't want a tight house because tight houses breed viruses and bacteria, and it causes illness. You were talking earlier about the culture stuff and things that you remember growing up. I remember getting lined up in front of the refrigerator, and we would get cod liver oil with rock sugar.
That part. And you could get the rock sugar to get that fish taste out of your mouth.
That's right.
That was real stuff. I mean, I remember that and just stuff it. I mean, my mom used to make us take it raw.
And real cod liver oil.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, it ain't the pill, y'all. It ain't that gel you get at the pharmacy. You had the jar. She get it fixed up with the jar, and the sugar would be at the bottom, and she would shake it to get the sugar mixed up in it, and made sure she scooped up the sugar in, like you said, the counter that fish taste, because that was the real stuff, y'all.
Yeah, real.
And she would line us up in front of that refrigerator, and we would take that tablespoon of cod liver oil with that sugar.
And I never really got sick. I don't remember being sick.
Yeah. And we didn't catch colds like that. And my mother, another thing she would say, go play in the dirt, because playing in the dirt builds your immune system up.
But see, I wouldn't tell my child to go do that now because honestly speaking, our soil, that's a whole nother conversation. They ain't the best these days.
And I know that conversation you have because I know, I don't know if you know Jermaine Jenkins with Fresh Future Farm in North Charleston, and her entire farm, her urban farm garden is above ground.
Yes.
Because in North Charleston, there are over 121 chemical facilities, plants, etc. And that ground is so poisoned, it is recommended do not grow directly in the ground.
Right.
Which you're going to eat. Because you're eating, like you say, if you're eating nutrients, you're also eating toxins.
That's scary.
Yeah. So, you got to pay attention to stuff like that. You got to pay attention to the water. What also is environmental with the Gullah Geechee Seafood Trail. Part of it is seafood handling. We've also been approached by a PhD candidate. She's studying, a young Black lady is studying oyster acidification of the water, the acidification of the water, because it's impacting our oyster beds, which impacts the oyster harvest, which impacts livelihoods. There are people out here harvesting those oysters that we like to eat at these oyster rolls. And for us, our community is heavily involved with that. That's part of our culture also. It impacts livelihoods. So it's not just when we say, go recycling. We have to understand the connections of all of this. You throwing trash on the road, it gets into our streams, it goes out to the ocean, it's polluting the ocean, and that water is getting more acidic. It's, and it's impacting shrimp, oysters, fish, the plastic. Fish eat the plastic, we eat the fish. Plastic is in us.
Yep.
And these are the conversations. You're right. We need to have these conversations so people really start thinking about this, and not only thinking about it as in what is my individual responsibility, but y'all think about it as in, is this a career opportunity for my child?
Yes. Trust me, we represent, if you want to get some really scary facts, out the public health environmental field, I think they said it's 5%. They just said minorities. Most of it is male heavy dominated. Women are like at 0.5% of that, at the 5% minority and being a female. So
and we have to increase that. And why we have to increase it is because we're the frontline communities.
That's right.
We're the ones being directly impacted by climate change, not in 20 years, right now.
Right now.
And yet we tend to live in the lowest lying areas, so the rising tides are flooding our homes. We just had this conversation about the soil. What's in the soil tends, all pollution runs, it's going to find the lowest spot.
That's right.
I've been through the NAACP National Energy Certification.
Nice.
And they flew us into Baltimore, and it was like 3 or 4 days of intense training. It was really good. About 2 years ago, it was before COVID. And I remember this exercise they called the aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it started, I don't know if you've ever seen this exercise or been through it, but it started with us asking the question, you're in your house, and where does your energy come from? And most people, so I'm asking y'all this, where do you think your energy comes from? And most people, well, we had a little bit more information because the people they took to this training had a little bit more knowledge, but we still didn't have full knowledge, right? And I still don't. I learn every day. But most people will say, when I turn my light on, the average person has no idea where their energy comes from. So they started going backwards to eventually the energy source. But as we went backwards through the grid, how it gets to your house, going to the plant, how is that energy created at the plant? Is it coal based? Is it solar based? Is it, propane, etc.? You go through the questions then, or is it nuclear based? Then the questions become, if it's nuclear based, what are the consequences of producing it?
Right.
Nuclear energy produces nuclear waste. Where does nuclear waste go? You've already touched on it a little bit. Nuclear waste more than likely is buried in marginalized Black and Brown communities.
Yep.
And it eventually does what? It leaks.
It leaks and it comes out. And then you have
it gets in the groundwater. And all these communities you can actually see when you start looking at the data. And now it's getting into what you talk about, public health, right? And environment. Cancer rates increase.
Yep.
And an average person doesn't even think about stuff like this.
Nope.
This is why we have these conversations. This is why we need consultants like you. And this is why we need more people in the field. So we really start getting knowledge and understand consequences.
Like our place here in Georgia is coal based. That's where our energy comes from. It's coal based, and the coal plants are in the underserved communities. I mean, what's the excess of that? Air pollution. So Georgia have one of the highest air polluted air ever. We got high rates of asthma and all types of respiratory
COPD.
Yeah, COPD. Yeah. All that here in Georgia for, especially in little kids, especially my daughter's age. So that's scary to me. So
it's very scary because that's lifelong consequences.
Right. So that's what your allergies, like adult allergies and all this stuff. I came down here, I was like, wow, this is horrible. I was away in Virginia, out in the countryside of Virginia, in Mount Vernon, the air, the trees, all that great stuff. And then I moved back down here because I wanted to be closer to my mom because they are elderly now. They're in their 80s. And I was just like, my God, I can't even really breathe here. Like that's not what I remember, growing up. I can at least the morning time I got that. During the hot sun, maybe not so much, but even with that, we didn't even care about how hot it was out there. We used to drink the water from the water hose. Everybody drank from the same hose and we kept it going, community immunity, right? And I laugh about that. But I said, we can't even do that now. Like, no, don't touch that water hose. You don't know where water come from. You can't be, it's like we worry excessive stuff that we would never think about we had to worry about. But nowadays we have to. But just to see my daughter run around in a safe place and she gets the nutrients that she needs to grow and, make her own mistakes, and that type of stuff. It's a concern. And really that's how it piqued my interest as to on the advocate side on how I'm like, nah, this not just affecting me. It's affecting, the guy next door, the lady across the street, her kids, her grandkids, her great-great-grandkids. Like, nah, we all in the same neighborhood. So
we're all breathing it.
And we all breathing it. Like, nah, listen, and I mean, we do it around here to try and, try to keep the culture and stuff. Like, I've never been to a place where somebody just came next door and just said, hey, you need anything? I had some extra grapes. You want some? That type of thing. It was weird where I live at now, but, in most of these communities that are keeping up the culture, we're not coming back to either. And that's another thing that we go off. Like right now, I'm working my way back to Johns Island, to be back in South Carolina with my family. I still keep my, as they say, my toe over there because I do have, land. I do have property here. So, I am vested when they do have, like, they've been doing things virtual. I do go to council meetings. So I know what's going on because any moment when I do move, I don't want to be lost. Like, okay, what's important? What's going on over there? Like on Johns Island now, they're eyeing it for a hospital right now, to have a hospital over there. I got that article, I don't know if I'm like, well, Mom, did y'all go to the meetings and stuff? She said, we went to the meeting, but they said the guy was eyeing. I said, no, I mean, they already have a spot they want to put it. Just know that. So where's it going to be? How's that going to affect traffic? How's that going to affect, commerce? How's that going to affect a lot of things?
How's it going to impact runoff?
Yeah, that's going to impact
because if you build a hospital, you're creating parking lots, parking garages. What type of materials are they using? Yep. Asphalt, even now there are ways that there asphalt that's more environmentally friendly where the water drains through it. But most average, that's expensive. So always when they build these type of facilities, they're looking at low cost. They're looking at what can we do at the lowest cost? And regular asphalt is the lowest cost. Regular asphalt also sweats.
Yes, it does.
It sweats the oils because it's made out of oil.
It's made out of oil. It does.
It's made out of oil. So it sweats. Then the next rain comes. That rain
rinses it right off.
The oil and goes right into the ground and it's poisoning the ground. So it's ironic. The hospital is supposed to heal us. Many hospitals are actually part of the problem.
Yep. And then
and the hospital has biohazard waste.
That's what I'm about to say. That's the most wasteful place ever. It has 9 to 11 streams of different type of waste. So you can't just think of one. You have to think of all of them. And actually, that is where my specialty is. I worked in a hospital for like 15 years, just being the environmental chief. And I will tell you, it's a lot. I had to do, permits, site stuff, double check. I had my people go and double check, redo readings, come back, make a plan. Hey, to whoever my supervisor was, this is what we got to do. It's not a problem now, but give it about a year. It's going to be a problem. And sure enough, around that year mark, I'm like, hey, I'm coming back with higher data. It's showing that it's a problem. We need to act on this now. Well, how come you didn't tell me before? Again, education, like I did tell you before, but I don't think you understood the conversation that I'm having with it. So we're going to
when you get the data, and that's another thing why we need more people in the field. We need people who understand research and gathering data and then taking that data and quantifying it. Because then you could go and show people through these actions, these are the consequences. This is the impact. Then change can be made. But we need more people from the culture in these fields because you do understand the culture. It impacts us differently. These conversations that we're having, when we when you build certain things, and they've already built them in our communities, cold generating plants. It's not just what we're breathing in the air. And the more I've learned, it's what they put in the water.
Mm-hmm.
We have a cold generating plant probably 6 miles from where I live. It's not so much what I'm breathing, but the river that comes by my house that I can walk to in 5 minutes. The warning started when I was in middle school. Oh, just eat out of this once a week. Y'all, I don't eat out of that at all.
That part.
What sense does that make? I don't even eat out there. We stopped fishing in that river. We stopped. Talking about mercury. Then we just went through with DHEC, our Department of Health and Environmental Control, where they weren't doing the certifications for that toxins in the water for over 10 years. They didn't certify, which means they weren't doing testing that they should have been doing. And yes, I went to a public hearing about it, and I went off on them. You literally are allowing them to poison people.
That part. And it's, and it's like, okay, so then you don't want to cause hysteria. So like you said, so the risk management and how you present stuff to people too is another thing. But climate reality is real. It's something we can do about it, before it's too late. But we just have to really all work together and be educated on how to do that effectively. Because right now, it's proven. COVID has proven a lot of things that we probably would have never known about. And, even though people say, this is crazy, this is ridiculous, this COVID is just making my life so miserable. Yeah, but at the same token, you can't say that with all of these things that are happening, coming out, if COVID hadn't happened, would they come out really? I probably would say probably no. More people are more paying attention to the environment and trying to have these conversations because it's important at this point. But the thing is not to let it, and we can't let it die. We have to continue because COVID is not going anywhere. That's for sure. So
it's not.
It's
this COVID-19. People need the common cold is a COVID, y'all. It's COVID. This is just a different type of COVID. We have COVIDs all the time. We just let this one get out of control.
Yep. And now we have, COVID Omicron. If you ever know anything about the Greek alphabet, that's a lot of different versions for them to get to. It's just like the hurricane season and the names. They ran out of names. You go into the Greek alphabet. So that's pretty much what's happening with this particular virus.
And we're not trying to be doomsayers and negative, folks. What we're trying to do is share knowledge so that you're informed and you can have options and you can make informed decisions. We can turn things around in many ways. We can turn things around, but you first be a part of the solution. You have to have knowledge.
That part. And also to include some of the things that we are microbial resistant. I know this is going to touch a little nerve. Bleach is not the cure to everything. It is not. I mean, I don't have as much bleach as I have. I'm not going to say I don't have any bleach in my house because I will be not telling the truth. But I do have the small version of it to use every now and again. When you bleach everything or you use any chemical a lot, those strands, the diseases, the repercussions, all of those actually build a resistance to where when you use it again, it doesn't work. The same thing with pest control and how you have, the Orkin or the Terminex guy, which I don't use, but just to go ahead and kind of, what they're supposed to do is alternate the types of stuff they use, right? If they don't, then it builds up a resistance to whatever they use it again. So the same thing, helping out with, it does kind of help with energy. It does help with the environment when you use less toxic chemicals, because not only the efforts to actually make the chemicals don't work when you keep using them and you disregard. So that's why I personally don't use a whole lot of bleach in my home. Like every now and again, like when, my husband had COVID, yes, I broke up, that. But also you have to look at the hazard and what it does and how it gets into your body. Most people back in the day, my grandmama them, water, bleach, some soap, no gloves, no, depending. Like for the dishwater, I've seen her put on them yellow gloves. But just to clean, sometime she ready to get to it, no gloves at all. That gets into your skin, which is the largest organ on your body. And then you have, skin cancers and all those, cancer type stuff, cancer producing agents or fibroids or all these other things that are just not healthy. So chemicals too is something that chemical listing and switching, substituted to stronger stuff, just putting thyme in water and actually shaking up and letting it sit for like a day or two and using it to spray and clean your countertop off, just as effective as bleach. That's just something, just one way, this natural stuff.
I got some out in the yard, so thank you for teaching me that. I got a spray bottle. I need to go get my water.
It may have a little smell.
I didn't know that. That's good, but that's cultural. We've gotten away from using those herbs and plants that we had that benefited us. But I have to say, a lot of things that are produced are plant-based. So what we need to do is go back to the origin, the plant itself.
Go back to the plant itself. It has
from the plant, and they've, put the scientific stuff. They put it in the lab and process it. When let's go back to the plant, and that's a cultural-based solution.
Yes, it is. And so I'm just like, hey, put that in there. Do a little bit of the real pine needle, some pine, and you're good to go. But yeah, I use a lot of thyme, rosemary, those things that you cook with and good for the body. Those also will help protect your body the same way too. Like you said, by using different parts of the plant. There are different ways to, go back to those types of things. And it's sad because naturopathic medicine is not considered like doctor, it's just considered more internal medicine, kind of sort of to where you can just supplement it with, but they want you to do Western medicine. And honestly speaking, the pharmaceutical company is making a killing off of using it because the pill to get you with the pill more, to cut off whatever reaction you have for another pill. And, hey, certain stuff
we're gonna have to bring you back, Chriscilla, just for that conversation. That naturopathic, that the pill to give you the pill to fix what the pill created. And I'm not saying not go to the doctor, y'all. I have my doctor.
Exactly. We do have to use wisdom and be wise. But there are also things that I will tell you that I know from different other cultures, like the Chinese, the Asian Americans and Asians, they do tea and water. That country have little heart issues, like heart attacks, high blood pressure. They have little of that. When you see them kind of obese or big, 9 out of 10, they're actually either on a sumo wrestling or whatever, or there's a disorder. But they treat everything with tea and alkaline water. That's pretty much what they do. I lived over there for a while in the military, so I kind of look at what they do in their hospitals. I'm like, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a member of the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce, twos and teas, and she blends teas. Mm-hmm. And not only are they delicious, but they all serve a particular health purpose also, even if it's just relieving stress or natural energy, etc. But we do need to really start incorporating these things back into our lives. We've gone over our time. This has been a fascinating conversation, y'all.
Yes, it has. I was
wrap it up. So
I was like, oh, okay, it's an hour and 8 minutes.
No, we were into it.
So we were like, hey,
which is a wonderful thing.
I would definitely love to come back. I love these conversations.
We're gonna have you back, and some other things I want to talk to you about. But we're gonna tell everybody thank you very much for joining us today. And that is funny. That's funny. And I'm like, this is really just a fascinating conversation that we're having today. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And we want to thank Chriscillia Cox with SUMA Consulting. Y'all, we were running her number through the entire show, and you can see it on our Facebook page. Call her if you just want a consultation, and then go from there. But we really need to start having these conversations more. Of course, we have, because of the Energy Foundation, we are continuing our environmental and energy conversations, roundtables, and conferences. So if you're interested in knowing more about our conference that's going to happen in October of 2022 this year for the fourth time, 4 years in a row. Reach out to us and let us know. We'll be happy to get you involved. Chriscilla, I'm going to let you go and see you in a few minutes.
Okay.
We have a quick conversation, but thank you for joining us today. You are much appreciated in your knowledge.
And likewise, thank you.
All right, thank you. Y'all, thank you for joining us today. And thank you to Chriscillia Cox with SUMA Consulting for talking to us about not only our environment and energy, but our culture and what we can do within the culture to improve the health of our environment and improve our health as individuals and as our community. There's more to know about this, y'all. We got a lot of good programming, and this is why every second Wednesday we come together and we have these conversations. So I'm going to let you know that this Sunday we're going to be joined by Damon Fordham, and we're going to talk Black History Month with historian Damon Fordham. And it is always a far-ranging conversation when Damon joins us. And he has a new book coming up in the fall of this year, and we're just going to do some Black history because it's appropriate during Black History Month. Thank y'all for joining us today. We enjoyed your company. We enjoyed Miss Chriscillia Cox with SUMA Consulting, and we'll see you on Sunday with Damon Fordham at 4 o'clock. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.